we're getting down to the wire here. We got the last game, and this is an inter-SEC matchup between two teams that have a lot to prove. They have a lot to put out there on the line, and that's Texas A&M heading to the Swamp.
Oh yeah, this might be my SEC game of the week. Sometimes when I'm picking the SEC game of the week for the new SEC podcast game of the week, I want to pick the game that I think is going to have the most offensive firepower or the most star power, the most interesting. And week 1 we picked Notre Dame versus A&M, and week 2 I think we picked Texas Michigan. Yes, and that was the big top 10 matchup. And this week, you could pick LSU and USC, and we could mirror College Game Day for the third straight week. You could pick Alabama versus Wisconsin. But I something like I said at the beginning of the episode, something about that 3:30 p.m. kickoff time. These two teams have something to prove, and it's in the Swamp. Nothing is more SEC than going down to Gainesville, Florida. To me, it might not feel like it these days for Florida fans. But, some of the things that I really look at when it comes to this game is, you look at kind of what Florida's defense has got to be the glaring hole. They gave up, I think they're averaging about 385 yards a game given up. That stat's a little skewed because it was really just kind of based upon their performance against Cam Warren week 1, which could be the best quarterback they play all season in terms of NFL prospects, potentially. But, Florida, we need to see more on the defensive side. And the other big headline, and Hunter, you could touch on it, is kind of like, where do they go at the quarterback position?
Yeah. Cam Ward, top tier. They're going to see, if you look at the Heisman ballot and you take off Ashton Jeanty at Boise State, Florida plays like all of them except for Jalen Milroe. They got Quinn Ewers, they got Carson Beck, they got Nico at Tennessee, Jackson Dart. Like, Florida has the gambit of quarterbacks to play against. And the question, though, is what do they do at their own position? Graham Mertz getting hurt in the first week, DJ Lagway playing in the second. Billy Napier said he doesn't care what the fans think, but it's tough to see where they're going to go with this. He mentioned it this week that they're both going to play. The intention was that both these guys play, but is that the right answer? I'll say I don't think Graham Mertz is Chris Leak, and I don't think DJ Lagway is Tim Tebow. So it's not going to work out that way if you try to incorporated in that. But that's the look that they're going to give it's going to be Graham Mertz to start, who struggled extremely in week 1, DJ Lagway, who came in and was able to see slight success. Mertz is the safe play here, right? But if you want to win games down the stretch, I'm not sure Mertz will be able to get it done. The high ceiling of Lagway needs to be developed early. If you were there and you were Billy, what would you do?
Yeah, if I was there and I was Billy and I'm playing with Florida on College Football 25, I'm rolling with the mobile quarterback.
All right.
I'm rolling with the freshman. I think I'm thinking about this in terms of how he played week 2. He led the SEC in yards, 485 yards roughly, 3 touchdowns. I'm thinking about if there is a world where Florida does move on from Billy Napier, getting DJ Lagway playing time probably encourages him to stay there versus potentially entering the portal. Like, if they can see a little bit of success, or he can see this glimpse of, okay, I like playing in the Swamp, I like playing these SEC games. All right, if there is a world where the coach goes away, DJ Lagway, I think, will have more confidence playing in this game. I think he gives you more of an exciting look to see what you can see in the future and what you can see right now. So that's who I would be rolling with. And I think just from a safety standpoint, if it's a toss up, why not sit the guy out for another week if he had a concussion a week ago?
Yeah.
I'm not a doctor, but another week with your head off would probably be pretty good.
Yeah. They have no more bye weeks other than the actual scheduled bye weeks. Every week this Florida team is fighting for a win. But I'll say I can defend Graham Mertz a little bit here. I think a lot of his problems in the first week were because of the pressure that Miami was getting on him. Going into the season, Texas A&M was that team that was going to be that high pressure, all power, star-studded defense. But I think that this Texas A&M defense is maybe not as good as advertised. 1 sack on the season. They played McNeese last week. Still only 1 sack on the season that came against Notre Dame week 1. And we've seen the big plays break out. It's not on the outside. like I've seen some people saying, it's right up the middle. It's, Jadarian Price broke off that big one, Jeremiah Love right after in the Notre Dame game, giving up big running plays. If for whatever reason this Texas A&M defense keeps up that trend of not getting pressure on a quarterback, and you let Graham Mertz sit in the pocket, we know what he can do. He was great last year. Don't want to look at one sample game against, you mentioned stats don't necessarily, they just speak for that one game for the Florida defense. Same for Graham Mertz. He's accurate. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes. We've seen that development in his career. And if Texas A&M gives him that opportunity, then that's what I think is going to happen. He'll be able to complete some passes and start some drives like he wasn't able to do week one.
Absolutely, and I love your defense of Graham Mertz. I think it's very warranted, and I put it in my notes. It's my first note here. This feels like a game where you sort of throw away the stats. Texas A&M played Notre Dame week 1. Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois week 2. So a lot of their defensive stats are based upon playing a Notre Dame team that they did a good job stopping, and then against a McNeese State team who is a they're a superior opponent to McNeese State, right? You look at their defensive stats; they're sitting at 36 in the country in terms of pass yards per game at 158. Graham Mertz will be the best quarterback they've played so far this season, and statistically, Riley Leonard should have been. And could have been, but I just feel like it's not enough of a sample size to hang my hat on the defense just yet. It's not necessarily a scrutiny at them, but if I'm going to focus on a strong point, I need to see more than just that Notre Dame performance. And unfortunately, that was kind of negated with that NIU win over Notre Dame in terms of the week 2 matchup.
Wegman looked better last week than he looked against Notre Dame. When we're looking at the offensive side against Notre Dame. But again, that game's kind of hard to tell now with the NIU one. So Florida's not the only one with the quarterback problem. We have Wegman here who's coming into this game and needs to show off against that Florida defense. You mentioned that was a big question mark, a big vulnerability, a little bit undisciplined. They gave Cam Ward in week 1 the opportunity to continue drives that they stopped with pass interference, penalties, personal fouls. Can Texas A&M take advantage of that? Connor Wegman needs to find stride. We've seen him be good. We need to see him be good now. This is the game where if he doesn't play well, the quarterback play on the other side of the ball will be better than him. Only 225 yards on the year so far. They have the running back tandem. They have Le'Veon Moss, who is solid. Amari Daniels, and I know you're a Cowboys fan, so EJ Smith, Emmitt Smith's son out there getting it done for them. I think that they're going to take a little bit advantage of this Florida defense and be able to run. Florida's D-line is a little bit bigger. These are some good, solid running backs that have high motors. There's 3 of them.
Yeah, there's the three running backs, and I think when I think about for Florida, and I'm going to take the EJ Smith hook, and I'm going to put it back on Emmitt because Emmitt Smith went to Florida, and who I like at Florida is Eugene Wilson III. To kind of help with Graham Mertz. He's got 191 yards in the season, freshman All-American from last season, trying to have a strong sophomore campaign. And so I expect him to kind of play a key role in this game. He's definitely someone to keep your eye on. And, like I said, part of me just feels like you almost have to throw away the stats and just let the game play. Who the guys are. Both the quarterbacks need to see improvement. We need to see an identified strong wide receiver from A&M. And I think on the defensive side, A&M's defense has looked good. Florida's defense hasn't looked as good, but it's a 1-game sample size, and of course he looked good against Samford. So it'll be an interesting one. It's going to be on ABC right after that South Carolina LSU game. So you won't have to change your channel too much and just kind of keep it rolling there.
Keep it rolling. And you mentioned a good point, and that's the A&M needing to develop a all-star receiver. And they're not doing Wegman any favors on the receiver side right now. Like, no one has really been showing out for him. And that's mostly the thing to look at there is the lack of separation. We talked about it in the week 1 preview. Over, almost half of their yards coming after contact means the receivers aren't getting the separation that they need to be hit in open space. So Wegman is having to make those tighter reads. Speaks positives to the running backs who are able to break tackles. But wanted to bring that up. The bright side for both teams are the DBs. Florida's defense looking a little bit rougher up front in the last 2, mostly, against Miami. I don't want to really count the Samford game for too much, but the DBs are going to look as good as always. I want to see the Texas A&M defense to step up to what we were expecting for them preseason. We know Mike Elko is very good. at creating unique, interesting, all-power defenses. We need to see that from the D-line. We need to see it from the linebackers. On Florida, we need to see good wide receiver play. We need to see good quarterback play. And we need to see good D-line play, getting pressure. They didn't get it in week 1. Texas A&M 4-point favorites.
Yeah. The spread is the closest because these two teams appear the closest. They were probably the two teams closest in my power rankings when I think about the last episode. And so I would say that I'm gonna give the nod. I'm gonna give the nod to Florida here.
Yeah.
I think they come out here at home. I feel like they put it together enough to win. I'm gonna take them 21-14 in the Swamp.
Okay, man. I hate, we got a lot of the same picks here. It's interesting when we do this, man. I like Florida at home behind better quarterback play. I think it's going to take Connor Wegman a little bit longer to get it together. Man, I like Florida 24-17. I almost want to change it to disagree with you, but this is what I'm seeing. I think Florida got it 24-17 at home. They want to give the fans something in the Swamp to be happy about.
Yeah, I think for me when it came down to it, you heard my critique on defense, you heard a critique on offense. It's quarterback play feels somewhat even, but we kind of know more what we'll get from Mertz. And so if it's a push, I'm gonna go with the home team in this one. I think Florida needs it more. Mm-hmm. I know Billy's players want it for him. I know they want it for themselves. And not to say that A&M doesn't want it, but it's the first year for Mike Elko. If they lose, I almost feel like you're almost desensitized to the overreaction of A&M fans. So it's like you're just used to, if you lose, it's going to be all hell breaks loose on Tex Ags forums. But if you win, it's like, okay, what do you got for me next? But I think for Florida, this one means a lot more. I think, it's in the Swamp, and they really want to prove something here in their first SEC game of the season.